Hello, everyone. I am the Reverend Godfather, the main host and frontman for the Long Coat Mafia podcast. You can find the podcast with links down below in the description. This is a vlog in regards to John Johnson, filmmaker John Johnson, and his film company known as Darkstone Entertainment. And the film theory is for and how his movies, Plan 9, shown here, correlates to his Skeleton Key 4-movie film set and Dr. Elemental's Mad Labs. And I'm going to be showing them right here. I am, matter of fact, going to be using the DVD for Skeleton Key 2, or John Johnson Skeleton Key 2, shown here as a representative of the first film, because my copy of the first movie somehow disappears mysteriously, either through various means of not being returned back to me, or I have no idea where it wandered off to. And I do apologize when I show the Mad Labs picture show cover, because it is his wife. I believe it is her creation in regards to that, but that's not important. We're going to try to tie these three things together the best we can. And to start it off, let me do a little bit of a summary of John Johnson's Plan 9. Now, the original Plan 9 was made by, for those who don't know, was put out and made by filmmaker Ed Wood back in the mid to late 50s. Now, there was a companion book to that movie done roughly about the same time. Maybe 1957, give or take, and around there. Now, for this version of Plan 9, this version right here, there was a companion book made. And I'll show you that cover by bringing it up on my Kindle right here. Let me just unlock it. Right here, as you can see, folks. Let it kind of focus in there. This is the 2016 version of this book. Was, I won't say loosely based on this movie, but it parallels, I want to say the book kind of fills a lot of the holes that this movie doesn't really give, while in relation to the movie, yes, like with all books, they differ, but it tends to fill in a lot of holes that the movie doesn't really give, or story that the movie doesn't really give out. Now, we're going to be covering in regards to, like I said, the Skeleton Key 4-movie series. Now, the first one, now where it ties in is thus. I want to tie it in between the first movie and the second movie. Now, the second movie in the Skeleton Key series takes place maybe about Johnny Johnson. If you're watching this, please let me know if I'm correct in regards to when this movie falls in the timeline of the Skeleton Key movie set, because I think this one takes place maybe 2 years after the first movie, but don't quote me on that. I would like to hear what you have to say about in regards to when this movie takes place, how far after this movie takes place, I should say, after the first one. But back to Plan 9, John Johnson's version of Plan 9. Now, in this movie, we see, in the original Ed Wood version, the aliens come, in their Plan 9, if my memory serves correctly, they come to Earth. It's their 9th time. They're executing the 9th plan to take over the Earth, and which entitles them, or implies that they're, or should I say, in that particular movie, we see them resurrect the dead in order to take over the Earth. Now, in this version of Plan 9, upside down, my bad. In this version of Plan 9, we see a scientist by the name of Lucy. Not so much, it's implied, and we find out later that she created a new type of energy source that causes the aliens to come and to stop it from progressing to a coming to fruition. The whole aspect on her plans to develop the energy source further, and so forth and so on. So the aliens resurrect the dead in this version to as an army to not so much conquer, to fight the people of Earth. Now, that's where they differ. Now, in this version, they, instead of seeing a spaceship, there's various nods to the original Plan 9 in this movie. I do recommend buying it or renting it. It's on various outlets, including Amazon, Vudu. I think it's on the PlayStation Network, and it's on Xbox Live. So there's various outlets where you can actually rent this digitally and watch it digitally. I think at most, if you want to own this version of Plan 9, you can do so. It's, I think, no more than $10. So I do. That's my recommendation. I do recommend picking it up. Now, when it comes to the Skeleton Key movies, you could find this sequel, Skeleton Key 2, or John Johnson's Skeleton Key 2, on YouTube for free. I don't know who posted it up, Johnny, but it is up for free on YouTube. But you could also buy his latest Skeleton Key movie, which is Skeleton Key 3 Part 2, on various sources, including Vudu and Amazon Prime. So, how do these two movies relate? Well, in the book, I'm going to be referring to the book too. I just finished that book today, as of maybe a few hours of this recording. It doesn't. The reason why I wanted to wait until doing this until after I read it is just in case the book provided more information about certain characters that I didn't have at the time, and sure enough, it wasn't really that necessary. So, but the book was necessary, but it isn't necessary. Now, the book makes reference to two different characters, one of which is Dr. Nochez. And in Skeleton Key, that's the main villain in the Skeleton Key movies, is Dr. Nochez. The other character the book brings up is Dr. Ellie Mental. And how they relate to this. The other characters I'm going to be making reference to, you heard me make reference to Lucy, which was the scientist in this version of Plan 9. And the other three characters I'm going to bring up is Kelton, which is one of the deputies that was in Plan 9. And he's played by none other than John Johnson. And the next character I'm going to bring up is Danny. He's played by the one, the only, Christopher Duncan. He's a wonderful actor, and I will say this. Let me insert this little note. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. A lot of independent filmmakers like John Johnson tend to use a lot of the same local actors and people they know and they can rely on. And John Johnson is no different. He uses Christopher Duncan in a lot of his work, and I'm not saying he's a bad actor. He's a real great guy. He portrays a lot of great roles and does a good job. And I cannot deny that. He does carry comedy well, and he carries seriousness well. But that's not the point I'm trying to make here. The final character I want to bring up in reference to Plan 9 is Police Chief Simmons, and it'll come apparent in time when I start talking about the Skeleton Key series, and how it relates to Plan 9. Now, Plan 9 takes place Halloween. As a matter of fact, it takes place Halloween night. Give or take late afternoon. It kind of correlates into the overnight until November the 1st. Now, in the first part of the scenes, you see a meteor come down, and Danny's character and Jeff, Danny is a co-pilot in Plan 9. Danny's character is a co-pilot, and Jeff is a pilot. They do ferries back and forth, and the whole thing takes place in Nilbog. So, And to describe Nilbog, according to a lot of sources and a lot of not just Skeleton Key and Plan 9, but a lot of other Johnson's movies, they take place in Nilbog. And Nilbog is, according to widespread lore in regards to the movies, both Skeleton Key and Plan 9, both the movie and the book, Nilbog is an island. It's a very large island set in the middle of a river, a very large river. Neither the book or the movie say what the name of the river is. It's just that it's a very large island surrounded by a river. And this meteor comes down. What everybody thinks is a meteor, at least what Jeff and Danny think, and their passenger thinks is a meteor. And it comes down, and it turns out, and later in the movie, that this was just a UFO hidden inside this meteor. Spoilers, of course. And all spoilers are implied from here on out in the series, but I do recommend you checking out the Skeleton Key series and the Plan 9. Both are very well done, but the Skeleton Key series is more comical than the Plan 9, and Plan 9 is a little bit higher budget than the Skeleton Key series, so please go with that into your considerations. So, back to Plan 9, and what happens is, once the meteor lands, it doesn't act like a normal meteor when we watch it in the movie. It deviates and lands either behind the school or close to an abandoned elementary school. The aliens use that school as a home base in a way, and they disassemble their spacecraft to use as part of their home base. Now, at some point, they release a energy wave which reanimates, or a short burst. They increase in strength as the movie goes on to a certain point. And at one point, when the first wave goes out, it resurrects the most recent dead. The dead that are within about a month. And that's when we start seeing the quote-unquote zombies be resurrected. And when the second wave gets released, anything that is killed by the zombies within that first round, they get resurrected, and the first wave of zombies gets a little bit smarter. Now, when the third wave goes out, the people that have been killed by Wave 1 and Wave 2 of zombies, they get resurrected, and Wave 1 and 2 get a little bit smarter. So, here's the thing. By the end of the night, at least according to the book, a population, Nilbog's population goes from roughly 5.8 thousand people down to maybe closer to 2,000. So, about 2/3 of the population are pretty much gone. They're dead. Either through resurrection, or they either are turned into zombies, or they are literally dead. I want to say by the end of the movie, between the military surrounding the town and quarantining the town, and the zombies, and what happens in the book and the movie, we see the military do their own killings to prevent people from escaping the town. Now, here's the problem. I know it's coming a little bit of scatterbrained, so please follow. By the end of the movie, you have a bunch of, I want to say, there might be about 1,000 people left. Maybe a little bit less than 1,000 people. I want to say close to 1,000 people left. Now, here's the issue. I know this is going to be long. The issue is 1,000 people are left, and you have, by the end of the movie, again, spoilers, every zombie that has been reanimated can't be used anymore. Done deal. Now, let's get into Skeleton Key 1, the first movie. Now, in that movie, Dr. Noches. Now, I want to say this. In the book, it explains that out of this scientific institution that Lucy works out of, Dr. Noches and his assistant, Elemental, were kicked out for doing illegal and unethical experiments in regards to uh, everything. They don't really say, it just involves students. Whether it's reanimating the dead or what have you, we don't know. It just says they were kicked out of this scientific institute for unethical and illegal experimentation. Now, let me read you this. How this little fun series or this little interactive movie might fit in. Now, this is a little bonus. And let me read the back of the cover, what it says. Help Dr. Elemental make a living, walking zombie with the aid of her two assistants, Mr. Butterbottom and Roscoe the Duck. She takes us through her experiment while showing us the instructional video, Night of the Living Dead. Now, and in Skeleton Key, the first one, please forgive the cover, Dr. Noches states that he created the zombies and he created the monsters that are in town. And it all started when a meteor hit his friend, who was also a scientist. Now, in Plan 9, the aliens arrive here in a spaceship disguised as a meteor. Now, my theory states that did it land on his Dr. Noches' friend, because we don't know where in the book or in the movie, it doesn't say where they wandered off to. Now, Dr. Noches could have taken up shop in that school. It was abandoned. It had easy access. Now, or he could have seen roughly where it went or what happened. He could have ran off to find help in regards to this meteor crashing on his friend. Now, like I said, he said that he created the zombies and he created the monsters from taking a sample of that meteorite. My thought is, what happened at the end of Plan 9 was the ship got destroyed. And with all probability, the possibility of the aliens that were occupying that ship as well. So my theory is, what if Dr. Noches... Now, I will say this. Dr. Noches, Skeleton Key 1 probably takes place maybe about 3 days out of from the events of Plan 9. Week the most. Now, I want to say Dr. Noches, being a scientist, I'm not sure exactly, it's never mentioned what kind of scientist he was, either biological, more than likely biological. And I want to say he took what the technology that might have survived the ship's explosion from Plan 9 and the genetic material from the alien bodies that have been left over to create, not only resurrect the dead that he was able to using that technology, and use the genetic material that he found to create the zombies, using some of the survivors that he found roaming around or hiding in Nilbog. Now, another evidence in reference to the time frame in the first Skeleton Key is when Howard, also played by John Johnson, comes to town. A lot of the first group he meets up with says, we were having a Halloween party and the zombies showed up. Would they be far off? No, because in Plan 9, zombies did show up and they could have been scared or traumatized to leave the house for a few days to make sure that they didn't, they went away. Apparently, as soon as the final wave or the explosion pretty much killed off the zombies created by the aliens, that's when Professor or Dr. Noches took over and resurrected zombies. So in essence, according to those survivors, the zombies never went away. So what about, how does Danny fit into this? Because the reason why I'm bringing up Danny is because in the book and the movie, he survives, but we're not really let into what happens to him afterwards. Meaning, with Jeff and his newlywed wife, I believe her name is Patty, they pretty much drive off and they find a secluded location, they wait out the night, then they leave. With Danny, we don't get that. We know he survives an attack. And that's it. We're let to know that he survives, and that's what we find out about him. So, my thing is, with Dr. Noche's elemental being crazed scientist, what if Danny also, because everybody treats trauma, especially the possible weird and traumatic events that could have happened in Plan 9, upside down again, they were affected, they snapped a little bit. They went a little insane in the membrane, if you will. In regards to Danny, we see him show up in Skeleton Key 2 as Arbuckle. Could he have just... Now, Skeleton Key 2, like I said, takes place maybe about a year to 2 years going on. Now, him being still there with activities, he could have snapped and he could have adopted the pirate persona. Where did he get this idea of the pirate persona? Simple. The book for Plan 9 explains... The Plan 9 book explains that possibility. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think I brought up Chief Simpson. And Chief Simpson in the movie and the book for Plan 9 is the police chief for Nilbog during this time. Now, Police Chief Simpson, or Chief Simpson, did die in the movie and the book. Now, in the book, it is said that he's trying to be hipper and younger, or at least trying to relate to the younger generation with the aspect of the word selfies and trying to use the current lingo of the younger generation to kind of relate with his younger deputies and some of the people that are in Nilbog. And it is said in the book that at one point he had a sailor or pirate. He was going through like a sailor phase or a pirate phase by saying laddie and lassie and starboard and port and this whole thing. So Danny, being a local resident and probably in one way or another, knowing the chief in some way, it's a fallback. It was a way to cope. It was taking on somebody's personality that he knew probably passed away during the events, and thus knowing that the police chief was probably a courageous person and a leader, and he adopted that, at least what he remembered of the police chief, adopting this Arbuckle personality. And his attachment to Howard. Okay, and Skeleton Key 3, we're going to go a step. Now, this takes place maybe another year or two after Skeleton Key 2. I'm erring on the side of caution here with the year time frames between each Skeleton Key movie. In Skeleton Key 3, we see an attachment with Arbuckle and Howard. Howard doesn't want no part of it. Now, my theory is, why is Arbuckle kind of hovering towards Howard? Well, again, Howard and Kelton are played by John Johnson. Now, one could argue, even though, again, a lot of independent filmmakers, I'm not knocking this in regards to John Johnson, use a lot of the same actors. And sometimes the main director inserts themselves into the movie. Look at Lloyd Kaufman in regards to trauma films. he tends to show up in a lot of his own movies. That's not a bad thing. But, and from a movie standpoint, what if Howard and Kelton look similar? Or maybe they're part of the same family tree in some way. And because Danny recognizes Howard a little bit in reference to how much he looks similar to Kelton, he thinks that, or at least mentally, he thinks that Kelton being that he might think in some way that Howard is Kelton, even though he does address Howard as Howard, but mentally he's in his mind in some way thinks it's Kelton, and he's expecting Howard to come on. It's like, come on, you gotta snap out of it, quit doing this. In a way, Howard does do that he's rejecting, but he's not really doing it in the way that he would expect, or I should say, Danny / Arbuckle is not backing off because he's expecting Howard to be more like Kelton, the police officer, the deputy, the person to be in charge. So that's one explanation in regards to that. Is it valid? I don't know, but it could be. Again, we'll have to see where John Johnson falls on this theory. Now, like I said, it is a plausible theory where we see the aspect of how it relates, that we see a meteor fall that's an alien ship. And in Skeleton Key, the first one, it taking place maybe a few days later, that Dr. Nochez, in essence, finds the technology, him being a smart man, but just a little bit twisted in regards to the situation at hand, in regards to it being a traumatic experience. They change a lot of people that it happens. Some people for the better, some people for the worst. For the most part, when you see the people that are trapped or hiding out in Nilbog in the first one, they're just scared. They don't know what's going on. They're able to at least, okay, we're hiding, we're safe, that's fine. Now, the other folks like Danny, Kelton, I want to say Kelton, or Dr. Nochez, they were closer to all this, or they've been through a lot of trauma that they could have just easily didn't know how to process, or once everything was over, they just didn't know how to reset, and they just snapped. Now, I'm not saying Danny in Plan 9 was very calm, cool, and collected, but instead of just everything, he could have snapped because I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to process this. We don't know exactly what went on. So, I cannot talk fully about Elemental's Mad Lab Picture Show because I have not watched this yet. This is sorry, John Johnson, this is kind of a bootleg copy that I picked up at a show. But I will say that I will take a look at that and see how it relates to everything. But it kind of does. It kind of fits. Because again, I apologize for keep using this. The photo here is Mariah Johnson, John Johnson's wife. I have not met her personally yet, but from what I hear, she's a very sweet lady, and she deeply enjoys John Johnson's company. So, because Elemental was reportedly an assistant to Dr. Nochez. That's how, let's create a zombie, so how this could relate. But with Skeleton Key 2, or I should say the Skeleton Key series, Dr. Nochez, being maybe that type of scientist, used that technology and used it to create the monsters, used it, and being a little bit of the aspect of, let's switch. He thinks meteorite, but he refers to it as the meteorite because that's what he saw it as. That's what it was. That's what brought the technology down. That's what brought the DNA to him. And it's simplistic. That's the story that was going around. The Skeleton Key series could be explained as somebody, because Howard is in this series, considered a quasi-journalist, and one can say that the story that takes place in this, or what's told to him in regards to Dr. Nochez and some of the events that are portrayed in here, is secondhand events, secondhand knowledge. It's his take and him telling you, the viewer, okay, this is what's told me, and in a way, they're kind of exaggerated a little bit because, again, trauma, and it's kind of hard to put into words. You can't really say, yeah, an alien vessel landed and I stole the technology and I stole the DNA and I made them zombies and the monsters in town. While all the while, it could be, again, it's shown in Skeleton Key, both the first movie, this movie, and the movies after that. Dr. Nochez is not all there upstairs. So, that being said, who knows? It's a way of him coping with everything. And as there are some things I cannot explain, and I refuse to. There are a lot of details in both. Both are fun films, and when reading the book and having both the Skeleton Key movies and Mad Labs, it was a fun way to wait a minute, some of these are connected. Are they connected somehow? Now, the Skeleton Key movies happen over time. Now, in the final Skeleton Key movie, it is said that Dr. Nochez is the one that takes over the Earth. And my guess in regards to that is what happens is that you see them heading toward the aliens, and you hear aspects of there's something going on in Montana, and Lucy's partner is in Montana. Now, and the aliens have said this is going to be a war against the human race for what Lucy and her partner created. Now, it's something that could be left out, again, part of the cover-up, and it was easy for Dr. Nochez to take over through the aspect of the aliens paved the way and left, the survivors, and just Dr. Nochez just went in behind and decided to do his thing. Now, whether or not that it holds water, we'll leave that up to Mr. Johnson. John Johnson, tell me what you think on how close I am, whether or not this could be canon in regards to how it fits in. Did Dr. Nochez steal parts of the ship that was in Plan 9 and alien DNA, the aliens that were left over, to use in his experiments, as per the book? Now, with the aspect of also Mr. Lobo as Griswold in Plan 9 series, kind of humorous, telling these were events that were told. I got to release these events and tell you what happened that fateful day. What did Griswold, or aka Mr. Lobo, or Griswold, tell us, in essence, the correlation stories between all the Skeleton Key movies and Plan 9? We don't know. It could be. That could be a theory for another day. But who knows? I want to hear what you have to think. I want to hear what John Johnson has to say about this theory. Yes, this is a long theory. It's 32 minutes and change. So I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what John Johnson has to say in regards to this theory. My guess is, again, the timeline-wise, even though the first Skeleton Key movie was made back in 2006, I want to say overall in the timeline aspect of things, even though it was made years ago, but overall it takes place maybe a few days after Plan 9. And the reason why you see a lot of how one or two escaped the aspect of Nilbog to be shipped out via to Howard is kind of beyond me. Whether or not an aspect of Howard being, to explain how Howard sees evil or the evil inside him, I want to say this. I want to add this part of it. There is a part of the book here let me turn this back on, that it is, let me just say, there is, home, come on, home, my Kindle's being slow. There is a part of the book, Plan 9 book, that talks about one of the military people that invade the town, known as Cap, that he was an initial contact with the alien spaceship many, many years ago, before the events of Plan 9. He was brought into the ship, and somehow they planted memories in his head. Now, with the aspect of Dr. Nochez creating these zombies and using the alien DNA, were when one of the zombies or monsters have bitten, or beings that Dr. Nochez has created, could have had that psychotropic aspect on humans. Now, that's unknowingly in regards to, that's again another theory. It could be a psychotropic aspect at bringing out certain events that at least drove Cap crazy, of being abducted, being probably interrogated and tortured for a limited time on this alien spacecraft. But it's obvious that with Plan 9 that he maintained this delusion of craziness. Now, and there are parts in Plan 9 that he seems like he's talking to his subordinate in Plan 9, but he could be in essence talking to evil, or a someone else, or his psychotropic event is here just being general crazy. But when Dr. Nochez uses the blood, or uses it to resurrect the dead, or uses it in monsters, and when one of those monsters has bitten Howard, the psychotropic event that is obviously still there, he's able to see a darker, more evil part of at least Howard's self. And we see a part in one of the folks in, I believe, Skeleton. His character is introduced in Skeleton Key 3, and he gets bitten and infected and starts to see evil himself. It is once the key is found and it is brought to a certain location. Again, spoilers, and then therefore everything is reset. Now, as per that, because everything is ends in the final skeleton key. My thought, again, for do this theory, because it's a very long theory, is the fact that Howard doesn't return a key, metaphoric key, even though that's what's shown. He's in essence returning a piece of the ship that is stranded, a piece that maybe the aliens left on Earth that Dr. Nochez has found. And once that he returns it, or the prophesized one returns it, therefore everything is reset, wiped clean, and set to reset as a way of it's a theory that I have to work on another time. John Johnson, again, if you watch this completely through, tell me how close I am, how right I am, because I think a lot of the side theories, like elemental and the aspect of the key being turned back to a neutral alien race to reset everything and make things right, is a side theory that I'm making guesses on, and I'm extending, and I'm in essence reaching. But for the aspect of the baseline theory of it being connected and the evidence, I try to provide to all of you. So please let me know how close I am with the baseline theory and the main theory of where everything falls and how everything correlates. So thank you. Good night. Make sure you hit that like button up there, or say that subscribe button. If you like this theory and you stay through it, please hit that like button below. Please subscribe to our podcast. Links are down below. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much, and good night.